Hey, so I've been blessed. Okay, I've been blessed to go to Walker Stalker cons in the U.S. and now the U.K. I got back from Walker Stalker Con London maybe like two-ish weeks ago. It was such an amazing experience, and I have some vlogs up for you guys to watch as well. But I thought that I would do kind of a compare and contrast video between the Walker Stalkers in the US and the Walker Stalkers in the UK. Now, a caveat, some of the differences and similarities are strictly because of the venues. So for example, I know that the Olympia, the place that they held the Walker Stalker in London, they had a policy of clear bags, and I think that is strictly like the venues policies, not like Walker Stalker's policy. So there'll be some things like that in there that will attain for the differences, but for the most part, it was actually pretty similar. Like I've seen some vlogs from some UK people that I follow, and it looked vastly different, but it's Walker Stalker. It was Walker Stalker in London. Like it was pretty similar, but there were some differences. So for starting, like I already mentioned, the clear backpack. Like there's no bag policy like that in the US. I think they started doing like dimensions, like your bag can't be over a certain amount of size wise, but that's pretty new. I don't think they really strictly like follow that, but in London you had to have like they had the size restrictions, but also your bag had to be clear. The first day I followed that to the T. The second day I forgot. They let me in. I didn't have any problems, but I heard that people got turned away. I just had been watching somebody's vlog and I heard that, so I don't know. The line situation. Now, if you're VIP, which in my past tips and tricks videos, I suggest you go VIP. That's the ticket level that I stick to with Walker Stalker Con. There's usually no line, right? You show up at 9 o'clock, you get let right in, especially if you don't have to pick up your badge. I picked up my badge the day before at various Walker Stalker cons in the US. That's usually no line. And then when you actually get to the con, there's no line. You just walk right in. For at the VIP level, that is key. If you're general admission, you're going to be standing on the line. It's completely different. But at Walker Stalker Con in London, there was a massive line for getting your badges the day before, and there was a massive line the day of to get into the convention as a VIP. It was insane. Like yeah, I'm not used to that. So it was really, it sucked, especially because day one of the convention, the Saturday, it was raining. So you getting stuck outside, and especially like they didn't have. Let's take it back to the day before. It was also raining then, and they had one volunteer checking people's details in order to get the badges, and she was such a sweet lady, but she was taking her sweet time as well. She gave you your badge. Here's your badge, sweetie. This is for you to get into the con. Make sure you have it with you. Here's your wristband. You have to have it. Like, she was talking in a really slow manner. She was explaining everything, and it was one person checking everybody. So yeah, that was crazy. But then the day of, it was another massive line. I heard, again, I was watching some vlogs that they were understaffed, and they totally were, because that is very unusual for one person to be checking details and giving out badges. Like, that's never happened in any of the US cons that I've been to. Okay, next thing. The coat room. I heard of the mythical coat room that exists at Walker Stalker Con London. I did not have any hope that it would actually exist because none of the cons that I had been to prior, except for Walker Stalker Con New Jersey, had a coat room, a mythical coat room, where you can like leave your things and don't have to struggle with them the whole day. They had it in Jersey for the first time, and I didn't actually use it because I didn't have a bag, surprisingly. But I didn't have a bag because I left it in my friend's car. That's why. Um, but yeah, that was a completely new thing in London. They had a bag check, and it was great. You did have to pay for it, but it was £1 per item, and you leave your stuff there the whole day from 9 to 5. It was great. I didn't know if I should have tipped the coat room people because I know tipping culture is different in London. Tell me if I should have tipped them. I didn't. Oops. Another thing. Okay, the vendors. Now, in the States, you have the vendors, and it's mostly you have your art, and you have a lot of clothing items that are very similar to official stuff that they sell, and then just like generic kind of, Mrs. Daryl Dixon. That's pretty much the gist of your artwork and vendors that you have at Walker Stalker Con in the States. At in London, I found that they had a lot more variety of stuff and a lot more like cooler things. Like I saw a bath mat with the "Don't Open Dead Inside" doors. I saw like throw pillows with original artwork on it. I saw like dishware and like pens that were laser I can't talk, that had like laser inscriptions on them. It was such cool artwork and cool original stuff that you don't see in the States. At least I don't see in the States. The second thing about the vendors is that like I said, in the US it's strictly like goods. You know what I mean? Like shirts and wallets or I don't know, like physical artwork. At London, I saw a lot of food vendors, like just people just selling food, not even just like con specific kind of stuff, like somebody was selling like Walking Dead cupcakes. No, people were selling like chips and water. And I think that's awesome. And you still had, regular concession people who were like off on the side selling like real meals, like dishes. But you had vendors who bought a booth to sell chips and water, and for decent amount of prices too. Like a pound for a water bottle, which is great, let me tell you, because there were no water fountains to be found in that venue. So the next difference is, let's see, about the kind of layout of the floor. Now, the Olympia had 2 levels, so they had a lot of the actors on the first level, and they also had actors on the second level, which is very strange. I feel like they should have had and this is what they do in the US, like everybody, all the actors and entertainment's on the floor, on one place on the floor. They didn't do that. Like I feel like if I would, it was weird. Like I feel like if I didn't know that the panels were upstairs, or if I wasn't interested in the panels, I wouldn't have gone up there, and then I wouldn't have seen like Emily Kinney or Irony. They were upstairs instead of downstairs with everybody else. So like a lot of the OG actors were upstairs, and except for Norman, he had like a whole section to himself, which he needs. Now, as far as panels, they were a lot stricter in terms of like checking your badges than they are in the US, from my experience. So if you've seen some of my tricks and tips kind of videos, I usually go up the side of the panel area and then walk across, and that's how I usually get to be in like the first few rows, even though they're technically just for platinum VIPs, because usually no volunteers are at that area checking. So, but at Walker Stalker Con London, they made sure to triple check your IDs to make sure that only those first 3 rows were for platinums and nobody else could sit there. And same thing, the next couple of rows were for gold. Nobody else could sit there. I thought that was very strange to be very strict about, especially when everything else in the con was like falling up. According to some people, like some people were pissed. They said like the con was like the worst ever. I didn't experience that. You know, mostly I'll talk about it in my recap, but I didn't experience that. So yeah, just being very strict on the sitting arrangements in the panels was different from how it is in the States, and it's weird. Also, they didn't allow people to move up in the States. Once platinum and gold have come in, like they're supposed to be there about 15 minutes early or something. If there's space, they allow people to move up. They did not do this in London. I don't know if they just didn't think to do it, or I don't know what the reason, or if there was more platinums. There were a lot of platinums and a lot of golds in London for some reason. So maybe that's the reason. But I saw space, and they still didn't allow people to move up. And the last thing about the panels is that there was a lot of pre-panel entertainment. So like when you've gotten your seat, you're there, and you're waiting for the panel to start. They had a lady, I forgot her name, but she was on some singing show, and she would come out and sing for like 10 minutes, and then the panel would start. And that was great. That was fine and dandy. She had an amazing voice, but I did not want to sit through it, and especially the same 3 songs. Like, I heard them about 6 times because I sat through a lot of panels this time. And then even Caitlin came out and sung a couple of songs, and she has an amazing voice, before her panel with Jesus, Tom Payne. So they had a lot more pre-panel entertainment than the panels at the US cons. There's some in the US cons, but there was a lot more in London. Okay, so let's see what else. The cosplay situation. So in the US, they have started doing a cosplay repair space. They didn't have that in London. So I think it was because, just simply because the person who usually handles the cosplay stuff wasn't in London. So that could just be what it boils down to. Also, in terms of the cosplay contest, that was different. In the US, they've started to have cosplayers fill out a form in order to enter the cosplay contest. And there was a lot of confusion about if this was the case in London. And again, I heard that you didn't have to fill out the form. Then I heard that you did have to fill out the form in London. So there was a lot of confusion. And again, I think it's just because the person who is in charge of cosplay didn't come to this event. Okay. Photo ops. They do not sell photo ops at the convention, whereas in the States, they usually do. Now, I heard that it was just to have some more control over the actor's time, so they could guesstimate better, how much time somebody's going to spend with fans in terms of the photo ops if they didn't sell them at the door. So yeah, they didn't do that. They didn't sell at the door. Oh, another big difference, Walker Stalker London sold out. I've never seen a Walker Stalker sell out in the States. At least none of the ones that I've been to. Oh, and the photo ops were way, way more expensive. The photo ops were insanely expensive in London. So I didn't go and get pictures or autographs. Actually, the autographs were a little bit more reasonable. Like I think Melissa was signing for like £35, which was like nothing. Um, I know that some people's photo ops were like twice the amount that that they usually go for in the US. So I don't know why that was, but yeah. So the photo ops were more expensive than they are in the US. And the last thing I noticed between the US cons and the UK con was that there were a lot less free things to do. Well, specifically in terms of like photo opportunities. So like in the States, they'll bring the RV. They had a Stranger Things booth set up. They had an official like volunteer run walkers kind of situation set up where people can get free pictures with walkers that are professionally made up by the con. They have in the States a lot of like step and repeat signs where people can get pictures in front of those, like let's say like Walker Stalker or and I didn't see any of that in London, like none, nothing like that in London. There was a company where you could they had a green screen where you could take pictures with walkers there, but it was like it wasn't free, it was a vendor. And that was pretty much it. Like I didn't see anything, you know, anything cool like that at Walker Stalker London. And that could literally just be because of logistics. Like they can't bring the RV to London, or it would be extremely expensive, not worth it for them. This US company to bring that stuff to the UK just for fans to get pictures in front of them. So yeah, that was some differences and similarities between the UK cons and the US cons. You can leave me a comment down below if you've noticed anything else, like if you've been to the US and or if you've come from the US to the UK. What are some similarities? What are some differences that you have noticed between the two cons that are the same con, actually?